What's up, guys? So I just got home from a terrible, terrible day of traveling. British Airways lost my bags. They put me on a flight to Chicago instead of London. You really couldn't make it up. But when I got home, I had a lot of notifications from people asking me to talk about this whole angle thing. So I think instead of writing on Twitter and some people missing it, or writing it on 2 plus 2 and some people missing it, because I have tried to kind of say my thoughts on it. I think making one video makes a little bit more sense, and maybe I can direct people to this video so they can understand, and I can maybe articulate more in a video than 130 characters, for example. So to put some context on the situation, we are in the main event, and it's day 3, and it's the bubble, so day 3. Um, we're in the feature table, and the feature table is myself, Andre, Kari, and then 5 of the regs who are probably a little bit unknown. We're playing hand for hand, even though we're like 10 off the money, which is kind of silly, I think, but whatever, it doesn't matter too much. Um, I play a hand where on the turn I bet 75,000 into a 25,000 pot. My opponent calls, then on the river I check, and he takes 20 seconds, he bets, then I take around about 2 minutes to fold my hand. Um, as soon as he bet, I made my mind up after 3 or 4 seconds I was going to fold. But we're playing hand for hand at this point, and there's a lot of waiting around. And one, that's really bad for the TV show because when you're just sitting and waiting for the bubble to burst and waiting for all ins to be announced and stuff, it's very, very boring watching. I've watched these EPT lives before and stuff. When there's actually pots going on and there's some talking and stuff like that, it's actually quite interesting, I think. And you start to understand the characters. And if I talk to him and he talks back a bit, then people start like want one person to win and want one person to lose or whatever. There's heroes, there's villains, whatever else. So I decided that in this hand, I was going to talk to him. There's a very important thing here is that we're not in the money yet. And he's going to win this hand and he's going to be chip leader and I'm going to be on his right. So generally this means that whenever I open, he's going to have the opportunity to be aggressive. So let's say I open the cutoff with ace queen and he's on the button. He can free bet me here with like 7-5 offsuit and I'm going to be in a terrible situation because it's the bubble and it's very important that I get into the money, right? So I know that I'm going to be put into difficult situations against this guy in the future. And to me, it's important to find out what he does when he's strong because I know right now that he's strong 100%. So I need to just talk to him, ask him questions, see how he reacts to my movements, etc., etc., so that in the next 1 hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours of play, I'll be able to make good decisions myself. So even if I waste 1 minute of time now, which I'm not wasting because we're hand for hand and other hands are going to go on for a long time, I'm going to save all this time up anyway later because I don't have to stare the guy down for 7 minutes and see if his neck pulses or something. Like I'm going to get very concrete reads from small things that will save time later anyway. So it's actually something which I tell my horses to do. It's something I tell a lot of people to do. Taking 30 seconds to fold a hand sometimes, which you know you're going to fold, it can save you, the table, everyone else time in the future anyway. And I think it's a pretty good thing to do in very big pots. Like if it goes, like raise pre-flop, check, 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 and then the guy bets 2 big blinds. Obviously, there's no point of wasting 20 seconds. But when you're in some very kind of unordinary pot, remember I bet 3 times the pot on the turn. It's a very weird, strange, different kind of pot where people are going to react kind of honestly and truthfully a lot of the time. These are the kind of spots where it's okay to take an extra minute. And anyway, we get to the river, and obviously, I see this movement on the other tables, and we're probably going to start our hands. The tournament director's looking over to our table, I guess, seeing that we're going to continue. And I decide, okay, I'm going to fold. And I try to pretend, okay, I've made my mind up and say, you got it. So I'm like, okay, then you got it. And it's as if I have been thinking for the last 3 minutes if I'm going to call or not. But I have a hand I can't call with. So I just say to him, okay, you got it, to try to pretend that, okay, I've been thinking about it and I've made my mind up and you've got it. He starts to look at me and he does this thing with his cards where he pretends to muck them and looks at me kind of smiling like he thought I had folded or something. And this is the biggest tell you'll ever see. If you play live poker and you're thinking of folding and a guy starts like moving his cards close to the dealer, this is like literally they have the nuts. They have the fucking nuts. So I just look at him and I say, okay, yeah, you really do have it, huh? and then I looked at him for a few seconds to see how his reaction would be to me, because when somebody realizes that you've worked them out, they will give some very big tells. Like maybe they'll move themselves in an uncomfortable way. Maybe they'll move their hands. Maybe move their eyes, their mouth, their nose. Maybe they'll touch their nose like this. Maybe they'll put their hand over their mouth like this. Maybe they'll like scratch their head. Whatever, you know. But when someone's been worked out, then they'll give off this tell. You know, it's a tell of like kind of being uncomfortable that someone's worked you out. It's natural, I think. So like, let's say later on he's on the river and he bets, and I'm thinking about bluff catching. If I say to him, "Oh, do you have ace queen?" and then he starts doing the same kind of movement, then that's going to help me out tons in the future. So I just look at him for, I think it's 5 seconds, 6, 7 seconds, whatever it is. Then I smile at him and then I muck my hand, and then he mucks, and that's all. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, okay, this is great. I've lost a big pot here, but I'm going to use this to my advantage. I'm going to win some chips in the future. As it turns out, I actually go from 250,000 to 1.5 million, 1.7 million, and a lot of my chips came from him and getting big tells off him and getting some reads from him, and a lot of it came from this hand. So I was feeling good about the whole situation. I then I get a text from my dad, and my dad was watching poker for the first time, watching me playing poker for the first time, and he says something like, the commentators are saying you're cheating, or the commentators are saying, like, he doesn't know like angle shooting, cheating, like what the difference is, which is natural, right? So I'm like, what the fuck, like what are they talking about? And then I start getting tweets and tweets and tweets, people tagging me, like calling me scumbag and stuff, and I don't know which hand they're talking about. Like, I'm trying to think back, because there was a hand where a guy bet the river, and I have a king, and the board is queen 10, king 4, king or something. He bets the river, and it's a really gross spot, and I say, okay, I've got a king, I call. And then he just mucks his hand, and I take like 10, maybe 5 seconds to think about if I should turn my hand over or not and show him, because I'm allowed to just fold my hand at this point. But I actually turned my hand over and show him that I did have a king. I'm not like cheating you or something. So I thought maybe it was this. So I didn't know exactly why people were keep texting and tweeting, and my friends were even like watching the stream who don't play poker, and they were like, what's going on here? We don't understand the situation. So it comes to life that I think that like I heard that the commentators had said this thing, and I was like, okay, yeah, like they're just saying some shit because the stream's boring, because there was no hands at showdown. Like, a hand didn't go to showdown for the first 90 minutes, I don't think, apart from my king jack, which shouldn't even have went to showdown, I guess. So I was kind of like, okay, these guys are probably just like saying bullshit or whatever, make a TV show, and people who are tweeting back are probably like, they're just talking bollocks too. So I was like, yeah, anyone who says that I angled in this hand, they haven't got a fucking clue. Like 100% they're talking bollocks. And I was very kind of aggressive and overly aggressive, like definitely made a big mistake there. I probably should have watched it myself or whatever, but in my eyes, I thought I'd done nothing wrong. I asked the guy if he thought I'd done something wrong, and he said to me, no, what are you talking about? You did nothing. Then I went to ask Andre Kari, because he was also on the table, and he's a very nice guy, probably the fairest guy you'll ever meet. I was like, Andre, in this hand, did I do something wrong? And he's like, no, we were having all fun together. There's no problem. So when they kind of agreed with me that I did nothing wrong, I was kind of like, okay, I'll just say like, fuck these guys, whatever, which I shouldn't have done, whatever. But you're playing the main event, day 3, you're trying to concentrate, and then you get like so many people like calling you a scumbag and stuff. It's kind of like off-putting a little bit, especially when I was really trying very hard to focus and play well. There's also a few other things which happened which had my mind in a little bit different ways. When I got there, the PokerStars employee told me that I couldn't wear my party poker patch. I have like some big party poker patch usually here, and they'd pre-made me some small party poker patch, so that was already kind of strange to me. It was also super, super, super hot. I was wearing like a vest underneath a hoodie, and the lights were really, really hot, and there's usually air conditioning there. But the guy whose job it was to turn down the air conditioning, he had taken his annual holiday. So the busiest week of the year, he chooses to go on holiday, and it was fucking boiling, and everyone was really sweating a lot. And I think I changed outfits and went for a shower 3 times out of like 6 breaks or 5 breaks. You'll see if you watch the footage, I go from wearing a t-shirt to a jumper, different jumpers, and it was really, really uncomfortable. I asked the staff if we could change tables because I didn't think it was fair. We were here all day when the set was broken, and our table wasn't interesting at all. Like I was playing some funky pots, but that was about it. But they refused, and they kept us there, which is whatever. I didn't mind being there. I actually thought it was probably to my advantage. So anyway, I go home, and then the next day I see Daniel Negreanu has made a poll. Did Patrick angle shoot or something like this? And I'm like, that's just not necessary. You know, like he could just come and speak to me and talk about it, whatever. Like I think I'm reasonable enough that we could speak about it. Or you could even ask me like we actually talk in DMs and PM and speak about issues like, and everything's confidential. And if he says something about PokerStars to me, I'm never ever going to repeat it. Or like even now, like if we have an argument, I would never go and like breach that kind of thing. So we've played together in the 50K. So him to kind of make this big thing was like kind of strange to me. Then I log on to Facebook, so I wake up, go on Twitter, Daniel Negreanu and all of his fans are kind of going at me. I then go on Facebook and I see PokerStars have like promoted a video, which is the video of me doing it, saying, "Is this guy an angle shooter or something?" And it has like 250,000 views. And I mean, we just uploaded a vlog, and in 3 hours, I think it's got 178 views, and this one has 250,000 views. So I'm like, this is like kind of a bit over the top. I then see, PokerStars staff like PokerStars board and like guys who work in the offices all tweeting out about it, Vanessa Selbst, whoever else, and I felt like it was a little bit of an assassination of my character a little bit, and I went way too defensive, and this was definitely where I was in the wrong. Around about 6 hours later, whatever, I kind of looked at the whole situation. I watched back on the video and I listened to the video, and like it's 20 seconds clip and it's me doing what I've explained before but without the context. And then straight away after, the commentators are like, "Oh wow, was this an angle? This is like unnecessary, etc." And I mean, it's a TV show, so whatever, they're allowed to be dramatic, that's fine. And I think I realized that if I am you watching the video, I may think that I'm a scumbag, like may think that, oh yeah, this guy was doing X, Y, and Z. And I didn't really think about it that way. I kind of thought about it just from my point of view. I didn't think about it from your point of view because, like, I knew the guy wasn't offended. I obviously don't think I did anything wrong. And everyone else on the table, including the PokerStars Pro Akari, they all thought I did absolutely nothing wrong and it was fine. So in my mind, I was completely innocent here. But looking back, I regret the choice of words saying "you got it," because "you got it" does mean okay, I'm going to fold, and I was folding, but it's just a word and a phrase you shouldn't use, and I won't use it in the future. I don't regret talking to the guy. I don't regret doing what I did because it helped me like quadruple my stack, and I will do that in the future because that's not cheating. Like talking to an opponent is definitely what you should do in big hands. Like that. That's what live poker is. Devilfish, Helmuth, Negreanu, all these guys, they all talk and they all get information because of it. Like Negreanu talks more than anybody, but it's just the way that you do something and the words that you say. You have to be careful with them. And I think some things I've learned from the whole situation. The first thing is, that one, like, just don't be too reactionary. Like, I've definitely from a very early age being too aggressive in retaliation to stuff. Like someone says something and I just jump down their throat. I don't necessarily let them tell me the whole situation and hear both sides of the story. So that's definitely something I learned. Second thing was just be careful with what you say. Just because you're excited or you're in a big stage, maybe take an extra 5 seconds to think about exactly what you're going to say, because it can have consequences later. I also think kind of there's been this like kind of pack mentality where one person jumps down your throat and it's very easy for someone else to jump down their throat. And I've kind of looked at myself from that point of view. And let's say this was some guy who I don't really like or some guy who I don't really know, and he does something and loads of people are having to go at him. Secretly inside myself, I'll be honest, I kind of like it. I like the drama. I like watching Doug Polk going after somebody. I like Doug Polk and Jason Mercier having this huge feud. Like that's kind of fun. Like, and maybe that's bad. I like that. And I think it's shown me like in the future that if there is something like that going on, I will kind of not take such a kind of greedy approach. Like I won't let myself be like humored or entertained by something necessarily. And sometimes I may show some empathy to others, I guess. So yeah, I'll wrap it up now because I've been talking for 15 minutes or so. Hopefully my microphone works. It doesn't usually. But yeah, I would just like to say, I obviously apologize to people who I retaliated to. I think especially Steve Riddick. He's like a journalist, and I used to be a poker journalist. And he was saying he wouldn't want to play cards with someone like me. And I said something like, "Do you even play cards?" or something like that, which was just petty. I shouldn't have said that, but I felt at this point there was just a lot of people jumping on the whole thing. I was trying to concentrate, and I was letting it get to me a little bit too much. So I apologize to you, Steve, and anyone else that I said anything or retaliated towards. I'm not a perfect person at all. I love the poker community. I've always tried to give to the community rather than take from the community. I like to give out free strategy. I like to meet people, speak to people. My whole thing with party poker is all because I want it to be the best site in the world and to give PokerStars competition, etc. I want to stay in the community. I want to stay involved, and hopefully, you guys who do think I'm the biggest asshole in the world, you'll give me one more chance. So thanks a lot, guys, and hopefully you understand my point of view. Thanks a lot.